How long has it been since you last took a plane? In 2023, the civil aviation industry lost 28.8 billion yuan. I am now publicly whistleblowing against Guangzhou Baiyun Airport Comprehensive Development Limited Company for owing me transportation fees amounting to 1.04 million yuan, which they have refused to pay back despite a court ruling in my favor.
您好，您乘坐的520号航班即将起飞。 没有登机的旅客，请您抓紧时间登机。
In recent months, China's airports have been very empty. Beijing Daxing International Airport has very few customers.
您好，您乘坐的520号航班即将起飞，没有登机的旅客，请您抓紧时间登机。
Another empty airport with no queues at all. What is happening? This phenomenon has become a big problem in China. And because of that, the loss of these airports have amassed to a shocking number. How long has it been since you last took a plane? In 2023, the civil aviation industry lost 28.8 billion yuan. Over the past 4 years, it has lost a total of 426.4 billion, equivalent to losing more than 700 civil aircraft. You should know that in 2019, the civil aviation industry actually made a profit of over 50 billion. So if you calculate it this way, even if the industry starts making 50 billion in profit per year from 2024, it would still take 8 years to make up for the over 400 billion deficit. This shows that the Chinese civil aviation industry is essentially in a tough financial spot, much like being in a deep hole after several bad years. Think of it like this. If an airline were a person, it's as if they've been spending way more than they've been earning. So much so that they're now deep in debt. Combined with fewer and fewer foreign and domestic guests, the debt is becoming greater and greater. Pudong International Airport looks empty. We can barely see anyone. Can't imagine this is an international airport. Imagine being in this situation. What is your thoughts? Not only that, the biggest chunk of their spending goes into buying planes, which is kind of like buying a house but much more expensive, and they need lots of them. Even when they buy these planes, they can't pay all at once, so they take out huge loans, which means they're also paying a lot of interest over time, just like paying a mortgage but on a massive scale, which worsen the debt of the airport. My name is Liu Dawi, and I come from a family with a background of veterans from the War of Resistance. I work in the transportation sector in Guangzhou. I am now publicly whistleblowing against Guangzhou Baiyun Airport Comprehensive Development Limited Company for owing me transportation fees amounting to 1.04 million yuan, which they have refused to pay back despite a court ruling in my favor. Now, I am publicly denouncing Guangzhou Baiyun Airport Comprehensive Development Limited Company. The transportation fees owed to me by Baiyun Airport stem from a contract in 2017. Unfortunately, court mediations and rulings seem to be ineffective against the airport. I am bringing this matter to public attention, seeking a judgment from the public on this issue. Chinese airlines plunge into deep losses totaling 138 billion yuan. China's 7 major airlines plunged into staggering losses totaling nearly 138 billion yuan, or roughly $20 billion. The massive losses were led by China's big 3 carriers: Air China, China Eastern Airlines, and China Southern Airlines. In 2023, the civil aviation sector experienced a loss of nearly 30 billion yuan. For 2024, the Civil Aviation Administration has set a goal for the industry to achieve overall profitability, despite reducing losses by 187.2 billion yuan in 2023. The sector still incurred a loss of nearly 30 billion yuan. According to the latest news, the Civil Aviation Administration has established a target for the industry to achieve overall profitability in 2024 during an internal meeting. This indicates that the administration has recognized the issue of losses and has begun to take measures to reverse the situation. Although profitability was not achieved in 2023, the Civil Aviation Administration is actively seeking solutions. Soaring fuel costs and weak demand create perfect storm. Behind these epic losses is a perfect storm of challenges. Soaring fuel prices, a weaker Chinese currency, and tepid travel demand. Jet fuel prices have surged over 50% since 2021 to historic highs. This has dramatically inflated airlines' largest cost center. Fuel price volatility also makes cost control incredibly difficult, with carriers struggling to hedge effectively. The continuous rise in gasoline prices in China raises questions about whether it's merely a strategy to promote electric vehicle sales. With the notion that half a tank of gas is taxes, there's a significant discussion to be had. When international gasoline prices increase, we experience consecutive hikes. Yet when they drop, the pattern of hikes continues unabated. For context, in the United States, a liter of gasoline costs approximately $1.42. In Germany, it's around 1.9 euro. In Japan, it's about 185 yen. While in China, a liter costs roughly 8 RMB. In terms of income, an average American worker might earn around $3,000 to $4,000 a month, whereas in China, many earn monthly salaries ranging from 3,000 RMB to 5,000 RMB, with a significant number of people falling within this range. Consequently, the proportion of income spent on gasoline by the average Chinese citizen is exceedingly high, arguably 5 times more than their American counterparts. The phrase "half a tank is taxes" refers to the various taxes included in the price of gasoline, such as a 13% value-added tax and a consumption tax, which is currently fixed at 25%. Additionally, there are other levies such as the urban maintenance and construction tax at roughly 2.66%, a transaction fee surcharge of 1.14%, a local education surcharge of 0.26%, and an import duty of 5% for imported vehicles, culminating in a total tax rate of 47.56%. This means that out of every 100 RMB spent on crude oil, 48 RMB goes towards taxes. At the same time, the Chinese yuan has dropped 10% against the US dollar since 2018. This currency devaluation has swollen the cost of dollar-denominated expenses like jet fuel and aircraft leasing. Finally, China's strict zero-COVID policy and repeated outbreaks have kept a lid on travel demand. Domestic traffic has only recovered to 75% of pre-pandemic levels as of March 2022. The collapse in international traffic has been even more dramatic. Hangzhou Airport is so empty. A person started to play the piano to improve the atmosphere. Due to the COVID restriction and rising service costs, the underground passage of Nanning Wuxi International Airport is deserted. The once huge and busy Luding Airport is now without a soul. Precarious financial health threatens sector viability. The 7 largest airports in China all have negative net revenue. Several smaller carriers now face a real risk of bankruptcy. In 2023, our civil aviation sector incurred losses of 288 billion yuan, amounting to a total loss of 4,264 billion yuan over the 3 years of the pandemic. Among the world's 24 largest airline groups, 4 from our country, namely China Southern Airlines, China Eastern Airlines, Air China, and Hainan Airlines, are on the list, and they are the only ones operating at a loss, while the rest are profitable. A significant issue contributing to these losses is the imprudent purchase of aircraft. For instance, our China Eastern Airlines annual revenue back then was only 461 billion yuan. Yet in July of the same year, they made a substantial investment by ordering 100 aircraft from Airbus for 90 billion yuan. Although this amount is not paid all at once and incurs interest, it raises the question of how many years it will take to recoup such an expenditure for 100 planes. The rationale behind such massive purchases can be compared to a local scenario. If Dongkun produces watermelons and we're on good terms, we might buy a truckload of watermelons from them as a gesture of friendship. Similarly, if Xi'an also grows watermelons, we might buy another truckload from them to maintain good relations. This blending of business with other matters leads to inevitable losses for airline. Moreover, a large number of individuals are currently on the blacklist for defaulters, preventing them from flying. Ironically, these individuals are often the most frequent in economic and business travel activities. Thus, how can we expect the civil aviation industry to thrive under such conditions? Additionally, it is said that 70% of our population has never flown, and with current financial constraints, even fewer people can afford to fly. China's airports in recent months. With no Seoul Ningbo Airport is on edge of bankruptcy. Industry debt levels have swelled over the years, with the total debt-to-asset ratio rising from 67% in 2016 to over 80% today. This means carriers have little leftover borrowing capacity to weather the current crisis. Several also have dangerously low quick ratios, a measure of short-term liquidity. Among the top airlines, Air China has the strongest quick ratio at just 0.4x. This implies only 40 cents of liquid assets available for each $1 of current liabilities. Yes, it has been abandoned for over a month now, and I don't know how to face it. I can hardly believe it's over just like that. I've fantasized countless times about the atmosphere here after the opening at night, and sitting here watching the bustling crowd below with a satisfied smile. After today, all of this will be no more. 180 days and nights, a witness to what was. Brother Hong, what should we do with this plane then? Where do we go from here? Does dismantling it also incur costs? Yes, clearing this site alone, excluding the deposit, just dismantling this plane will cost over $100,000. With the loss of potential earnings included, we're looking at a total of over $200,000. I don't even know how to face this. With the situation deteriorating, some expect Beijing to step in with a bailout. However, analysts warn that this could lead to a repeat of the messy sector-wide bailout in the early 2000s. Back then, overzealous state investment resulted in major overcapacity issues. By 2004, the sector plunged into $15 billion of red ink. A government bailout and painful restructuring followed, which eventually cost taxpayers nearly $10 billion. With the current situation, the proper conclusion is that the days of easy money for China's airlines are over. The Chinese government cannot afford another disorderly bailout. The industry finds itself at a critical juncture with its financial viability though a government rescue may be inevitable. Execution risks could leave carriers and taxpayers with yet another giant bill. The geopolitical implications on China's aviation sector. The narrative concerning China's aviation sector is further complicated by the dynamics of foreign investments and economic policies. Analysis reveals that the depreciation of the Chinese yuan against the US dollar has significantly impacted the industry, particularly in terms of increased fuel costs and a heightened debt burden on airlines. With fuel purchases typically settled in US versus dollars, a depreciating yuan exacerbates the financial strain by inflating the cost of fuel, a critical operating expense for airlines. Additionally, China Eastern Airlines' financial maneuvers, including a substantial aircraft purchase agreement with Airbus and an escalating debt-to-equity ratio, exemplify the sector's vulnerability to currency fluctuations and the complexities of managing capital-intensive investments in an economically volatile environment. The concern over China's economic direction and geopolitical posturing has led to palpable skepticism among international investors. Not only that, domestic investors can even have proper priority. A state-owned enterprise in Xi'an is planning to spend 300 million yuan on drones, despite the airport construction being halted due to a lack of funds. The case of the 7.15 million yuan sculpture in Xi'an remains unresolved, and now Pingyu County is involved in a 300 million yuan drone purchase through Pingyu Chengda Transportation. The company claims that drones are needed for airport operations, which is why they are purchasing them. However, the airport, originally planned to be operational in 2020, is still under construction. With the airport unfinished, the purpose of these drones is questionable, especially given that the halt in construction is due to insufficient funds. The total estimated investment for Pingju Airport is 247 million yuan, which has been delayed for 3 years with only 127 million yuan actually invested. Where then is the money for the drones coming from? The first quarterly deficit recorded in China's foreign direct investment in 2023 and the stalling of acquisitions and financing focused on China reflect a broader apprehension about the country's economic stability and regulatory climate. Western trade groups express ongoing reservations about China's extensive enforcement of anti-espionage laws and regulatory scrutiny, further complicating the landscape for foreign capital engagement in the aviation sector. Lack of investment is the reason why China's airport is in the state they are now. Without change, ghost airports will rise without end.